Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is October 18th, 2023, and Joan Laporta has been charged with bribery in the Negreira case. Also, the Vice President of Finance, Eduardo Romeo, has given us an update in regards to Barcelona's financial situation, and I'll have the most important highlights for you. And finally, Manchester City's star and the World Cup winner, Julian Alvarez, has been linked with a possible transfer to Barcelona. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo and this is Barca News' official live stream, which is on every Monday and Wednesday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As usual, I'll do a segment of news, then I'll head to the chat section to answer any questions and get a discussion going. And of course, for those of you who will be watching the live stream when it ends, I will be adding timestamps in the description and chapters in the timeline so you can skip through the discussion and go straight to the news if that's something that you want to do. Having said all of that, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you are looking to place any sports bets, make sure you hit the Bet Us. They're currently having a special for any new signups. And if you are looking to buy any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, make sure you hit the Kickback. Both links for Kickback and Bet Us are in the description. Now, one more tiny announcement before starting with the news in this that I am proud and excited to announce. The Barca News will be launching the official Barca News memberships. This will officially launch tomorrow. There will be 3 tiers of membership, each tier with its own kind of perks and advantages. So I will be launching it tomorrow. So stay on the lookout for the new Barca News memberships, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy the perks of this channel. Now, having made this extremely long introduction, I'm sure you're already sick and tired of listening to me, and now you want to listen to the news. So let's dive right in. As always, I like to do a few bits of short news at the beginning, kind of all lumped together because they're not long enough to kind of deserve their own segment. So let's start with good news, because today Alejandro Valde and Lamine Yamal both trained with the first team, and they are doing really well in their recovery, and they are expected to be back for the upcoming match against Athletic Club de Bilbao, which is this upcoming weekend. And of course, they will be back for a Clásico match, which is the following weekend. So good news to have both of our youngsters ready to kick the, I don't want to say kickstart because La Liga has already began, but in order to resume La Liga after this horrendous FIFA international break. But good news cannot go out without bad news. And the bad news is that Sergio Roberto has picked up an injury during training. He has a problem in his soleus muscle in the right leg, and the reports are currently saying that he'll be out for 2 to 3 weeks, which means he will miss a Clásico match, and of course, most likely will be missing the Champions League match against Shakhtar Donetsk. Now, some of you might say, well, it's Sergio Roberto. Who cares if he's injured? Who cares if he's out for the entire season? And usually I would maybe agree with you, but let's not forget that João Cancelo has played every single match since he signed for Barcelona. And Sergio Roberto was probably going to be the player to rotate with him. And now that Sergi will be out, it means that Cancelo is left without a substitute, especially since Koundé is also injured. And yes, Ronald Araujo can play in that position. But with the injury of Koundé, that makes it a little bit more difficult for Araujo to rotate with Cancelo. So not good news for Barcelona, because again, leaves Cancelo without a substitute to rotate with. Now, speaking of Araujo, yesterday, Uruguay defeated Brazil 2-0. It was a historical win. I think Brazil hasn't lost a World Cup qualifying match, I think since 2015 or something ridiculous like that. Some crazy number, and Uruguay were able to beat Brazil 2-0. Now you might ask, well, why do I care about what's going on between Uruguay and Brazil? Where the news is because Ronald Araujo had a spectacular match where he completely canceled out Vinicius Jr. once again, like he always does. So we could be looking at another preview of what's going to happen in the Clásico match, because, of course, it's expected that Xavi will most likely have Araujo guarding Vinicius. And once again, Araujo showed Vinicius who's boss and completely canceled him out in yesterday's match. And keep in mind that Ron Araujo is still not at the top of his form. You know, he just came back from injury, and despite that, he was still able to completely cancel out Vinicius. So you can only imagine how much better he's even going to do in the Clásico when he has 2 more weeks, you know, to recover, to get back into form. Now, one more bit of news, and this one is not necessarily concerning Barcelona, but it is a little bit of a sad news because Neymar Jr. has torn his ACL, as it's been confirmed. So he will be out for a very long time. Reports don't say how much, but I think a torn ACL is usually about a year. So we could see Neymar out for a year. It's definitely sad news, not for us specifically as Barcelona fans, but as football fans in general, because Neymar could have been probably one of the best players in the history, you know, alongside Messi. But unfortunately, between injuries, indiscipline, partying, lack of focus, unfortunately, we've seen the career of what could have been an amazing, amazing career just crash and burn of Neymar Jr. But that's all the little bits of news. So let's get back, or let's start with the chat section. Let's do some comments and questions, and then we'll dive right into the bombshell news that Joan Laporta has been charged with bribery in the Enriquez Negreira case. All right, let's start with these comments with Blaurana Culé. Says, no evidence or anything. This will never stick, and retribution for the club and us Culés will be so sweet. Thank you for your comment, Blaurana Culé. I won't go into it too deep because, you know, the next segment is about this. So I don't want to do any spoilers. I can't even speak today. But let's see. Grandmaster Yoda, it's good to see you back on the live streams. He says, do you think Scaloni could coach a club like Barcelona in the future? You know, that's a good question. And I think he could. You know, we've seen him, Argentina, you know, we've seen him improve drastically under Scaloni. He's made him a lot more knit, close group, or close-knit. I can't even speak today. A lot close-knit group. They play a very good touch football. And, you know, with players like, you know, like Messi, like Enzo, you know, all these stars on the team, Scaloni has shown that he's been able to unify them and manage them. And that usually tends to be a really big problem for coaches at big teams, where they might be good tactically, but they don't know how to manage the locker room with all the stars in them and all the egos. But Scaloni seems to have been able to do that. But again, who knows? Maybe the reason why the group is so unified is because they have that in common, that they're all Argentinian, that they want to win everything for Argentina, versus, you know, if you get big stars at a club, they don't have maybe that much unity, and maybe it'd be a more bit difficult to manage stars like that without that unifying factor. But, you know, I think he would, but we won't know until he actually manages, you know, a big club. Klaus says, hi Mo, what's up, Klaus? Good to see you in the chat section. And Klaus also says, Julian Alvarez will be a dream come true. Yes, it would be, but I don't want to get ahead of myself because that is coming up. Now, having said that, of things coming up. Wow, I just totally removed myself. I was trying to remove the comment. Instead, I removed myself from the stream. But let's get back to the news, because we do have to talk about the bombshell news that Joan Laporta has been indicted, or not indicted. Joan Laporta has been charged with bribery in the Negreira case. Now, I do want to recap the entire Negreira case really quick, just so you can better understand what has happened with Laporta. I know a lot of you have already heard me speak about the Negreira case and recap about the Negreira case a million times, so you're probably sick and tired of me hearing me say this. But, you know, number one rule in the news that you should always assume that all your viewers know nothing about the topic. So bear with me. I have to assume that some people are watching this my channel for the first time, or they don't know anything about the Negreira case. So I will recap it from the beginning, just so everybody can be on the same page and exactly understand what has happened with Joan Laporta. Now, some of you already know that Barcelona had hired the former referee Jose Maria Enriquez Negreira as a consultant for the club, so he can produce reports about referees. This is a very common practice in La Liga. All big clubs have former referees as consultants that help them, understand how certain referees rule, how certain football rules are applied, etc. So Barcelona hired Enrique Negreira as a consultant from the years 2001 to 2018, where they paid him a total of 7 million euros over that 17-year window. Now, the problem is that at the same time that Barcelona had hired Negreira, he was also the vice president of the committee of referees. So this, of course, prompted the prosecutor's office to launch an investigation into Barcelona, and charges were filed against Barcelona for corruption because the allegations were that Barcelona had bribed referees or influenced matches through Enrique Negreira. So in other words, Barcelona hired this guy, they give him money, he gives it to the referees rule in favor of Barcelona, and that's what they were charged with. After months of investigation, the prosecutor's office did not find any evidence of this, no evidence of bribery, no evidence of Barcelona influencing matches, none of that. So the prosecutor's office decided to change that investigation. But this did not sit well with the judge presiding over the case, whose name is Joaquin Aguirre. This guy did not like that the prosecutor's office had not found any evidence of Barcelona bribing referees directly. So instead, he came up with a new hypothesis and said, okay, well, maybe Barcelona didn't bribe referees directly, paying them cash. Maybe instead they bribed them through the promotion system, saying that Enrique Negreira would promote referees from the second or third to the first division. In exchange for this promotion, these referees would rule in favor of Barcelona. Well, that hypothesis did not last long because it was immediately found out that Enrique Negreira had no power over promotions or demotions. In fact, he had an honorary title. His title as vice president of committee of referees was completely honorary. He was one out of three vice presidents of the committee of referees. He didn't even get paid for that position. So he had absolutely no power of the committee of referees. So that hypothesis also failed. And the judge was once again found, without any evidence, without any case. So he said, okay, well, we can't prove corruption because there's no evidence of that. Let me come up with a new charge. So he came up with a charge of what? Bribery, which is when an organization pays money to a civil servant, and that automatically counts as bribery, because we know for sure that Barcelona paid Enrique Negreira 7 million euros over the span of 17 years. Of course, Barcelona say this is for the reports. This judge is saying, well, it doesn't matter what it's for. What matters is that Barcelona paid Negreira, and therefore that is bribery. Now, what's the problem with these new charges? Is that they cannot stick, because in order for bribery to stick, the person you're paying has to be a civil servant, a judge, maybe someone that works for the government, a mayor, etc. Guess what? The committee of referees is a private entity. Jose Maria Enrique Negreira, as the vice president of the committee of referees, he was a private individual working for a private entity. So bribery does not work. But nonetheless, this judge, in all his wisdom, I say that sarcastically, decided to change the charges from corruption to bribery because he could not prove corruption. Now, the statute of limitation on bribery is 10 years. Now, you might ask, what's statute of limitation? That's how long you have from when the crime is committed until you can actually bring charges forward. So the statute of limitation is about 10 years, or is 10 years for bribery. So the case was opened in 2023. So the statute of limitation, if you deduct 10 years, that puts you at 2013. So it means all the investigation can be from 2013 to 2023. Anything that can be charged has to be charged for anything that happened during that window. But then this judge decided once again to change his mind, and instead he decided to interpret the statute of limitation in a different way. Instead of counting from 2023, which is when these charges were brought forward, we should count from 2018, which is the last payment that Barcelona made to Negreira. So if you count from 2018, you deduct 10 years, that puts you at where? At 2008. Who was president in 2008? Joan Laporta. So this is why Joan Laporta has now been included in the bribery charges, because the judge decided to change his interpretation of the statute of limitation to have it go, instead of from 2013 to 2023, to instead from 2008 to 2018. And And of course, Joan Laporta was president from 2002 to 2010. And that is why Joan Laporta is now included in this bribery charges. Now, again, these bribery charges don't make any sense. The person you're paying has to be a civil servant. Negreira is not. But nonetheless, this has not stopped the judge, Juan Aguirre, from bringing these charges forward. And I think it's clear. I think part of why he's doing that is because when the charges were sports corruption, the trial would have been a bench trial. That means the judge would have had to rule on it. But when you change it to bribery, now you have to bring a jury. And I think the judge is doing this because he maybe believes that a jury would be easier to sway. I don't know, because after all, juries don't have to rule based on the evidence. Juries can still rule however they want, where judges are bound by the evidence. And in this case, there's absolutely no evidence of any wrongdoing. But another thing that really makes me angry about this case is that at this point, I don't think the judge even cares about the truth or about investigating anything. I think at this point, the judge is just finding any way possible to find Barcelona guilty. So instead of saying, okay, let's find out what happened, let's investigate the facts. No, he's like, how can we prove that Barcelona are guilty? So he doesn't want to find out whether Barcelona are guilty or not. Yeah, he's already made up his mind, and he just wants to find a way. He was like, let's do sports corruption. Crap, that doesn't work. There was no evidence of bribery. Oh, okay, promotion, demotion. Crap, that didn't work either. Oh, bribery. Ah, crap. Oh, Laporta's not included. Oh, let's change the statute of limitation. And at this point, this judge, what he's doing is playing legal gymnastics in order to reach his conclusion, which is absolutely sickening and disgusting, because this is not what the purpose of the judicial system is. This is not what the purpose of justice should be. The purpose of the judicial system should be about investigating what happened, finding out what happened, and then acting based on that, versus already starting with a conclusion and finding ways to twist the truth and bend the facts in order to reach that conclusion, which is what exactly this disgusting person of a judge is doing. Anyways, that was a very, very long explanation. I apologize about that, but you kind of do need the factual background in order to understand what's going on with Laporta and the bribery charges. So I'll stop talking so much and we'll head back to the chat section. And then we will talk about the financial update. It's good news, so it's good to go from bad news to good news. I don't want to depress you guys. I feel like a lot of times I'm just depressing you with all this news. I want you guys to watch my channel and feel happy, versus most of the time I feel like when you guys watch my channel, probably end up crying like I do every night. So I do have some good news. Don't worry. Don't break out that bottle of wine yet, unless it's celebratory wine, then maybe. Okay, let's see. Where did I leave off? Okay. Sundar says, then Neymar won't come to India to play against Mumbai City FC in Asian Champions League. I actually did not know that Neymar was going to play against Mumbai City FC. So thank you for that detail. All right, let's see. Brad says, as much as we have criticized Roberto, doesn't he have 2 key goals this year in his limited time? I am torn over his usefulness. I've always defended Roberto. I think he gets undeserved hate. We have guy who trains hard, works hard, keeps his head down, doesn't care if he plays a million minutes or just a single minute. He just wants to be there to help the team. Everybody talks wonders about how helpful he is in the locker room with the youngsters, teaching the youngsters, the skills to survive or to succeed at Barcelona. Everybody talks about how good of a leader he is in the locker room, always motivating everybody, always, being the captain on the bench, if you may. And then when he's called upon. Yeah, he comes out. Yeah, he's not an amazing player. He's not Cancelo. He's not dribbling past players and scoring goals. But, for someone who's just there, willing to do whatever the coach wants him to do, I don't mind. And he's not earning barely anything. So it's not like he's sitting on the bench earning millions and we're just wasting money. So, but it's easy to hate on him. Same way it's easy to pick on Alonso. They're just easy targets. So, yeah. Okay. Kenny says, so their logic, Barca bribe refs, but Real Madrid won all those UCL and other titles. Delusional. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we lost 2 La Liga titles due to bad refereeing decisions. But I guess we bribe referees. Nacho just got his suspension reduced from 3 to 2 matches so he can make it to El Clasico match. But, we're the ones who bribe referees. There's been, I think, the first 4 or 5 matches from this season, Real Madrid had horrible calls in their favor in every single match in a row. But, we're the ones who bribe referees. Anyways, what can we do? Let's see. Grandmaster Yoda says, Ney's career is pretty much over with this injury. What a shame. What a shame indeed. He could have easily been one of the best, but I don't know. What is it with some Brazilian players? Ronaldinho, same thing. Hulk. Guys, remember Hulk? So many players who could have been like amazing players, but just like to party. They like to party, which nothing wrong with that. I love to party too. But, you're only going to be a football player till 32, 34. Just focus on your career. And then when you retire, you still have another, if you live till 80, you have another 40, 45 years. You can party for 40, 45 years. You'll be rich anyway, so you still be able to enjoy your partying. Like, just focus, whatever. Anyways, let's get back to the news because it's time to talk about Barcelona's financial situation, because we do have an update from Barcelona's Vice President of Finance. His name is Eduard Romeo, not to be confused with Oriol Romeo, who is the absolute wall in the midfield. Anyways, Eduard Romeo gave us an update about Barcelona's financial situation. There is a very important assembly with the club members, or a meeting with the club members, scheduled for this Saturday, October 21st, where Barcelona is going to present the entire budget from last year to the club members, explain to them where the money went, how much money they made, etc., what they spend on, break it all down, and that has to be approved by the members. And then Barcelona will also present the forecast for this upcoming year, which also has to be approved by the club members. So this meeting is on October 21st, incredibly important meeting. And Eduard Romeo gave us kind of a preview of what Barcelona is going to present during this meeting to the club members. Now, the report was very, very long. It went into everything, but I read it. Don't worry. I've highlighted only the important parts. I'm not going to bore you with how much money Barcelona spent on toilet paper. I'm going to give you just the big numbers so you know what kind of financial situation the club is in. Now, forgive me for putting my glasses. I didn't memorize these numbers. It's a lot of numbers. But the biggest and most important thing is that in the year 2022 to 2023, so that's the last fiscal year, Barcelona reported 304 million euros in profit. This is not revenue. This is absolute profit. 304 million euros, which is absolutely huge, because Barcelona have been losing money for the past, 4 or 5 seasons under Bartomeu. And finally, not only are we not losing money, but we were able to make 304 million euros. Now, the forecast for this upcoming year, the 2023-2024, is that Barcelona will make a revenue of 11 million euros. Now, you might say, well, how did we make 300 million last year, and now we're only going to make 11 million? Well, there's 2 reasons for that. First of all, part of the profits from last year is the economic levers, where Barcelona sold assets. So we won't have that this upcoming year, because Barcelona haven't sold any assets. You might say, well, what about Barca Studios, the Libero, etc.? That still counts as last year. Okay? So there's not going to be any economic levers this upcoming year. That's why the forecast for the revenue, it will be smaller. The second reason is, of course, the Olympic Stadium. Olympic Stadium, where Barcelona are currently playing, has almost half the capacity of the Camp Nou. So that's half the amount of ticket sales, half the amount of merchandise that people buy at the stadium, half the amount in food and drinks that people buy at the stadium, etc., etc., etc. So that's part of the reason why we're going to go from making 300 million euros last year to 11 million euros this upcoming year. But of course, that is expected to then increase once we go back to the Spotify Camp Nou, to the renovated Spotify Camp Nou, which I'm very excited to see. So that's the number one big numbers. Again, 304 million euros revenue last year, 11 million euros forecast next year. The next thing is that the debt has been reduced from 1.3 billion, 1.3.5 billion euros to 1.2. So from 1,350 million euros to 1,200 million euros. Barcelona have reduced their debt by 150 million euros. Now you might say, how is this good news? We've only reduced it by 150. It is good news because when Barcelona, or when Laporta took over the club was spending more than what it was actually earning. That means the debt was growing and growing and growing. Before you can reduce your debt, first you have to stop it from growing. So that means bringing your expenditure below your revenue, because Barcelona was spending more than what it was actually making. So Barcelona had to increase their revenue with new sponsorship deals, with new partnerships. They had to reduce their spending by doing cuts all across the board, not just the first team, all across the board, getting rid of players, etc. So by increasing the revenue, reducing their spending, Barcelona were able to bring their spending below their revenue. So now they're earning more than what they're actually spending. So that was the first step to stop the debt from growing. Once the debt started growing, now they started working on shrinking it. And they've been able to shrink it by 150 million euros. There's still a long way to go, but the good news is, and this is another thing that Romeo spoke about, is that once Barcelona start playing in the new Spotify Camp Nou, the new Spotify Camp Nou will allow Barcelona to have an extra 150 to 170 million euros a year to pay towards their debt. So again, when we go back to the Spotify Camp Nou, the capacity is going to be increased to 100,000. So that extra revenue will allow Barcelona an extra 150 to 170 million euros to pay towards their debt every year. So that's good news, because in 10 years, we could have that entire debt wiped off. That's if only we use the money from the Spotify Camp Nou. If Barcelona, have extra money from other areas, they can even pay more and end up paying a debt in less than 10 years. So really, really good news on that front. And the last thing is that the wage bill was reduced from 600 million to 492 in the 2022-2023 year. So that doesn't count this summer transfer market. We reduced it even more. But that's good news, because Barcelona need to keep reducing their wage bill, because the less you spend, the more you have left over at the end of the year as profits. The faster you can pay off your debt, the more you can invest, the more you can grow the club, so on and so forth. Anyways, that's all the news as far as the financial situation. I hope I made your day a little bit better and it wasn't the usual gloomy news that I always give you guys. But let's do quick 2-3 comments, and then we'll talk about Julian Alvarez, because we are reaching the half hour on this live stream. And Ross, my man Ross, says, do you think if Roque shines big at Barca, we should sell Lewandowski to get some dineros? Saudi is always interested and they pay bigly. I mean, maybe his last season, but I don't think we're gonna get that much money from him. He's already 35 years old. By the time maybe he's ready to leave, he'll be maybe 37 at least. So I don't know how much money they'd be willing to pay, but I mean, if they are, this is great. And of course, as long as he's willing to go, I wouldn't want to, sorry, I'm getting an important text here. I wouldn't want to force him out, right? I wouldn't want to be like, you should go, because he made a huge sacrifice, putting his foot down, forcing pretty much Bayern Munchen to sell him to us. Not pretty much. He did force them because they want him to stay, and he said, no, screw you. I want to go to Barca and Barca only. So huge sacrifice, leaving Bayern Munchen, forcing his way out, coming to Barcelona during a horrible time where we were terrible, not sporting-wise, we were terrible financial-wise. The club, embroiled in this whole Negreira case, and he's come and has been excellent. So only if he comes up to the club and says, I want to go to Saudi, then maybe. But otherwise, no, because we owe it to him. We owe it to Lewy. He's done a lot for us. Okay, David says the Qataris aren't buying United anymore. Barca should try and get them to invest in the club. I thought you were going to say Barca should buy United. That would have been funny. I mean, if you guys want to start like a big pool, maybe we can all pitch in. We can buy United. What do you guys think? You down? Let me know in the comments. Okay, one more, then we'll do the Julian Alvarez news. I know Klaus wants to hear about it because Klaus likes Julian. Let's see. And David says, I notice a trend. Anytime we are going to play Madrid, we get charged for something to distract us. Not just that. Whenever Barcelona are doing good, or whenever Madrid is doing something bad too, like Madrid have a big loss or something, there's always the next day news about Barca. And no, it's not a coincidence. I mean, we all know how the news operate in Spain, which again, as I've said many times, one of the main reasons why I started this channel. So I'm sick and tired of seeing the same propaganda. But anyways, let's talk the last bit of news, and then we'll do more comments, I promise. But let's talk about Julian Alvarez, the World Cup winner, who is shining at Manchester City. He's starting to get more and more playing time. Pep Guardiola is using him a lot more. He has improved a lot under Pep Guardiola, and I have no doubts that he will gain more and more spotlight or protagonism, whatever you want to call it, Manchester City. And I was very interested or curious because I've been seeing a lot of reports lately linking Julian Alvarez to Barcelona, saying Barcelona will try to sign him, or they're interested in signing him. And honestly, I don't know how some of these media outlets operate. I don't know if ethics has gone out of the window, where profits are more important than writing the truth, because there's no truth to this. Is Barcelona interested in Julian? 100%. Any club would be, just like Mbappe, just like Haaland. Would Barcelona love to sign Julian? 100%. Who wouldn't want to sign Julian? Can Barca do it? Absolutely not. First of all, Manchester City has just renewed Julian Alvarez until 2028. And Pep Guardiola has made it extremely clear that they have no intention of letting Julian go. They're not interested in selling him to anyone. Not Barca, not Madrid, not Saudi, not Qatar, not the Martians, nobody. They want him to stay. And even if Julian decides, you know what, I'm tired of being here, I want to leave, the Manchester City reportedly will not sell him for under 100 mil. Which at this point, of course, is practically impossible. Barcelona cannot afford to pay 100 mil for Julian or for anyone. So, no truth to this. I was actually, the first time I saw the report starting to come out, I decided not even to talk about it. I saw them yesterday, maybe even the day before. And I was like, I'm not even going to bother. This is obviously, smoke and mirrors. But then the reports kept coming out and more sources started sharing them and more people start talking about it. So that's when I was like, okay, fine. I'll mention it, but no truth to it, guys. Sorry. I wish it was true, but, I'm not here to just sell you smoke for the sake of likes and subscriptions. I'm here to tell you what's actually going on with the club. But let the other media outlets sell you smoke for clicks. All right, that's all the news. Wow, I can't believe I got through it. I thought it was going to be a lot longer, especially with the whole Laporta segment. But we got through it. Thank you for sticking through. And let's do a few more comments and then we'll end it. Remember, YouTube memberships will launch tomorrow. Very excited about that, with a lot of perks that hopefully you guys will enjoy. But let's see. Ross says, Barca has zero problems letting their legends and sacrifices go towards the end. True. I just say, I just don't want to, I wouldn't want to see him pushed out, right? I would want him maybe like Piqué, like Alba, like Busquets. I want him to leave on his own accord, right? Because I hate when I see players like that being pushed out. Oh, Ansu Fati. Ansu Fati's here. What's up, man? How is Brighton? How's your leg? How's your injury? I hope everything's good. But Ansu Fati says, this Negreira case is a joke. And I agree. All right. And Straight Jacket says, the news about 122 million going missing from Real Madrid accounts in season 2021-22 fishy is what UEFA update on that news. Yeah, I made a video about this a long time ago, how there was a big discrepancy on the paperwork that Real Madrid filed. Of course, no news about that. There was also a big problem with their I was going to say Barca Femení, Real Madrid Femení, their women's team, when they bought that team, because it used to be its own club, Club Tacones, I think it was called. They had a huge debt. And when you take over an organization that has debt, you take over the debt too. You absorb it. But that debt just vanished into thin air. It wasn't reported. Again, made a video about that, but mainstream media wasn't really interested in these stories. So What can we do? Okay, Grandmaster Yoda says, do you think there's such a thing as a starters in the modern age of football? I mean, with all these injuries, it's hard to know who we can rely on. We're supposed to, but I feel like Xavi's having a hard time figuring out his starters. And, there's not, I don't agree much with, what's his name, Mourinho. Actually, I don't agree on anything with him. I think he plays this horrible, nasty football. But one thing he used to say, he said, first you have to figure out your starting 11 and then you figure out everything else. And I think that's very, very true. And I think that's something Xavi has struggled with a little bit. I think we know, obviously, his starters as far as obviously the goalie, Ter Stegen, his defense with Balde, Cancelo, Kunde, Araujo, but he's been having a hard time, I think, with his midfield where, we'll see Pedri, Gabi, Gundogan, Frankie Romeo, Pedri, Frankie, Gabi, Gundogan. Like, I don't think he's figured out who's his starter midfield yet. And then in the front, obviously Lewandowski is always going to be the starter. And I think if Lamine was older, he would be his definitely starter. And Felix on the left, he's definite starter. But I think he's still figuring out his midfield. Anyways, Moose Man, he says, hey, Mo, it's my first live stream in a while. Life has just been a little hectic lately. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well too, Moose. Thank you for joining the live stream despite life being hectic. I can totally understand. But I think this is it. This is all the news, guys. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. Thank you for your comments, your likes, subscriptions. Again, YouTube memberships were launched tomorrow. I will see you in tomorrow's video. Hopefully good news. Have a good night or good morning wherever you are in the world. And as always, Visca Barça.